Hashtag YouTube intro. Rocket Databricks just hit $188 billion, but Apple's lawsuit could blow up OpenAI's IPO plans. AWS is refunding millions in overcharges. Zoox's robotaxi just got recalled, and we're breaking down why GPU makers are pivoting to inference, Intuit's AI fail, and why agents operating in milliseconds are about to break legacy systems. Stick around, the story that changes everything is at the end. Databricks hits $188 billion valuation, extending its run as AI's favorite second act. Databricks just became a $188 billion company, and honestly, this valuation tells us everything we need to know about where the real money is flowing in AI right now. The data infrastructure startup has completely reinvented itself from a Spark optimization tool into what investors now see as essential plumbing for the AI era. What's fascinating is that Databricks didn't chase the flashy generative AI gold rush like everyone else. Instead, they positioned themselves as the backbone that makes AI actually work at scale, and the market is rewarding them handsomely for it. The company just published research showing that open-weight AI models can dramatically reduce costs for coding tasks compared to proprietary alternatives. This is a big deal because it challenges the narrative that you need expensive, closed-source models to get real results. By championing open models and providing the infrastructure to run them efficiently, Databricks is essentially saying they can be the Switzerland of AI, profitable and neutral, serving everyone regardless of which model they choose. That's a much stickier business position than betting everything on one vendor's technology. What this really signals is a fundamental shift in how AI value gets distributed. The companies making the actual models are getting all the headlines, but the infrastructure companies, the ones building the platforms where models run, where data gets processed, where everything connects, those are becoming the real economic engines. Databricks hitting $188 billion suggests investors believe the next trillion-dollar AI opportunities won't come from building better chatbots, but from building better systems for everyone else to build with. That's the second act that's proving far more valuable than the first. How Apple's big lawsuit could disrupt OpenAI's IPO plans. Apple just dropped a legal bomb on OpenAI, and this could be the thing that actually derails their IPO plans. We're talking about a full-blown trade secrets lawsuit alleging that OpenAI systematically poached over 400 Apple employees and used their insider knowledge to build competing technology. This isn't some small-time dispute. The complaint reaches all the way up to OpenAI's chief hardware officer, suggesting this was institutional, not accidental. The timing is absolutely brutal because OpenAI has been preparing for a major public offering, and suddenly they're facing serious legal exposure that could tank their valuation or delay the whole thing indefinitely. Here's why this matters beyond just the courtroom drama. Apple doesn't sue lightly, especially not companies they've had friendly relationships with. When a company of Apple's caliber files something like this, it signals they believe OpenAI crossed a serious line. The trade secrets angle is particularly damaging because it suggests OpenAI didn't just hire talented people, they allegedly extracted proprietary information about Apple's hardware roadmaps, manufacturing processes, or AI integration strategies. That's the kind of thing that can result in massive damages and injunctions that would cripple a company's operations. For the broader AI industry, this is a wake-up call about how competitive things have gotten. We're seeing the same pattern play out across tech. Companies are aggressively recruiting talent from established players, and the line between healthy competition and corporate espionage is getting blurry. OpenAI's carefully hedged response tells you they're worried. They're not denying the employee numbers, they're just being vague about everything else. If Apple wins or even forces a settlement, it could set a precedent that makes it much harder for AI startups to recruit from big tech companies, which actually might slow down innovation in the space. The IPO that was supposed to validate OpenAI's dominance might instead become a cautionary tale about moving too fast and breaking too many rules. Amazon fixing bug that billed some AWS customers billions of dollars. Imagine waking up to a bill for billions of dollars from the company hosting your entire business infrastructure. That's exactly what happened to some AWS customers this week when a critical bug in Amazon's billing system started generating absolutely astronomical charges. We're talking numbers so large they don't even make sense, estimates in the billions when customers were probably expecting hundreds or thousands. Amazon caught the error and is now working to fix it, but this incident reveals something genuinely unsettling about how dependent we've all become on cloud computing giants. Here's what makes this particularly concerning. AWS powers a massive chunk of the internet, from startups to Fortune 500 companies. When a billing bug like this happens, it's not just an accounting error, it's a moment where customers suddenly realize how vulnerable they are. Most companies discovered the problem because the numbers were so absurdly high that they immediately knew something was wrong. But what if the bug had been more subtle? What if it had quietly overcharged customers by 10 or 20% instead of thousands of times over? That's the real nightmare scenario that keeps infrastructure teams up at night. The broader issue here connects directly to how AI and automation are reshaping tech infrastructure. As these systems become more complex and interconnected, the potential for systemic failures grows exponentially. Amazon's billing system likely involves multiple layers of automated calculations, machine learning models for cost prediction, and interconnected services all talking to each other. When something breaks in that chain, it can cascade in unexpected ways. This bug is a reminder that even the most sophisticated tech companies are still building on foundations that can crack, and the consequences can be catastrophic for the businesses relying on them. Zoox issues software recall after a robotaxi got confused by heavy smoke. A robotaxi company just had to recall its entire fleet because smoke confused its AI brain. Yeah, you read that right. Zoox, Amazon's autonomous vehicle subsidiary, discovered that their self-driving cars couldn't properly understand what was happening on the road when heavy smoke was present. The vehicles got disoriented, which is exactly the kind of failure you don't want happening when lives are on the line. This recall is significant because it exposes a fundamental weakness in how these AI systems perceive the world, and it's happening at a moment when regulators are already scrutinizing autonomous vehicles for interfering with emergency responders. What makes this particularly interesting is the timing and context. The U.S. automotive safety regulator has been warning autonomous vehicle companies that their cars are actually getting in the way of first responders trying to do their jobs. Imagine firefighters or paramedics trying to navigate a scene while self-driving cars are making unpredictable decisions because their sensors are confused. This Zoox issue feeds directly into that concern. The company's AI relies heavily on computer vision and sensor fusion to understand its environment, but when visibility drops due to smoke, fog, or other obscuring conditions, the system apparently struggles to maintain situational awareness. It's a reminder that these aren't magic boxes, they're sophisticated but imperfect technologies operating in an incredibly complex real world. The bigger picture here is that autonomous vehicle development is hitting the messy reality of edge cases and unexpected scenarios. Companies have spent years perfecting their systems for normal driving conditions, but the real world throws curveballs constantly. This recall suggests that either Zoox's testing protocols missed this scenario, or they discovered it through real-world deployment and had to act quickly. Either way, it demonstrates why full autonomy is taking longer than many predicted. We're not just waiting for the technology to work perfectly, we're waiting for it to work reliably in every conceivable situation, including ones engineers didn't anticipate. That's a much harder problem, and recalls like this one are part of the messy journey toward getting there. Why the first GPU financiers are turning to inference chips in a $400 million deal. The money is moving. A $400 million chip-backed loan just closed, and it signals something huge about where AI infrastructure is heading next. For years, the entire industry has been obsessed with one thing: training GPUs. Companies threw billions at NVIDIA, AMD, and custom silicon makers to build the massive data centers needed to train the next generation of AI models. But that era is quietly ending, and the smart money is already pivoting to inference chips, the hardware that actually runs these models after they're trained. This shift isn't just about different hardware, it's about a fundamental change in where the real economic value sits in AI. Here's the technical reality most people miss. Training a model is expensive, but it happens once. Inference, actually using that model to answer questions, generate images, or power applications, happens billions of times a day. A single ChatGPT query, a recommendation on your feed, a search result, that's inference. The compute demands are staggering and constant. Inference chips are optimized for speed and efficiency rather than raw power, which means lower costs and better margins. The financiers backing this deal clearly understand that inference infrastructure is where the sustained, recurring revenue lies. They're not betting on the next breakthrough model, they're betting on the infrastructure that serves the models we already have. What this means for the broader tech landscape is profound. We're entering a phase where AI infrastructure becomes less about flashy breakthroughs and more about boring, profitable optimization. Companies that can build efficient inference chips, deploy them at scale, and operate them cheaply will dominate the next decade. This also suggests that the GPU shortage era is ending and a new competitive landscape is emerging. The winners won't necessarily be the companies that trained the biggest models, they'll be the ones who figured out how to run them cheaply and reliably for millions of users simultaneously. That's where the real money is, and that's why the smart capital is moving now. Intuit scrapped its own AI agent architecture twice in 4 months. At VB Transform 2026, its AI VP called that the fast path. #Intuit's AI reality check: why scrapping your architecture twice is actually smart. Intuit just admitted something most tech companies won't: they completely rebuilt their AI agent system not once, but twice in 4 months. And their VP of AI is calling it the fast path to success. That's either the most confident spin in Silicon Valley history, or it's actually revealing something crucial about how AI development really works in 2026. Let me break down what happened and why it matters for everyone watching the AI revolution unfold. Here's the thing: Intuit started with what seemed like the obvious approach: build a fleet of specialist AI agents, each one trained to handle specific tasks. It made sense on paper. But when they tried to coordinate all these agents, they realized they needed a central orchestration layer to manage them. So they built that. Then the orchestrator itself became so complex it started collapsing under its own weight. The whole system was becoming a bottleneck instead of a solution. So they threw it out and rebuilt everything from scratch around skills and tools instead of specialized agents. 20 days to get something working. 60 days for a complete rebuild. That's genuinely fast iteration. What's fascinating here is that this isn't a failure story, it's a learning story. Intuit's VP is right that this was actually the fast path, because they didn't spend months defending a bad architecture. They killed it and moved on. This tells us something important about AI development in 2026. The companies winning aren't the ones with perfect first designs. They're the ones willing to blow up what isn't working and rebuild at speed. For the rest of the tech industry, that's both encouraging and terrifying. Encouraging because it means you don't need to predict the future perfectly. Terrifying because it means your competitors are moving faster than ever, and standing still isn't an option anymore. Agents think in milliseconds, legacy infrastructure doesn't. LinkedIn, Walmart and Zendesk shared how they closed the gap at VB Transf 2026. Here's the dirty truth nobody wants to admit: your AI agents aren't slow because the AI is dumb. They're slow because your company's plumbing is ancient. That's the bombshell that just dropped from 3 of the world's biggest tech companies, and it completely reframes how we should be thinking about enterprise AI right now. LinkedIn, Walmart, and Zendesk just revealed something fascinating at a major industry conference. When they tried to move AI agents from controlled pilot projects into real production environments, everything fell apart, but not because the models themselves failed. The bottleneck was their legacy infrastructure. We're talking about databases designed for humans, APIs that weren't built for millisecond decision-making, and data pipelines that move at a snail's pace compared to what modern AI agents actually need. These companies discovered that an AI agent can think and decide in milliseconds, but if it takes 5 seconds to fetch data or write a response back through your old systems, you've got a problem that no amount of model optimization will fix. This matters enormously because it shifts the entire conversation about AI adoption. For years, companies have been obsessing over which models to use, how to fine-tune them, whether to go open source or proprietary. But the real bottleneck isn't intellectual, it's infrastructural. It's the unsexy work of modernizing back-end systems, redesigning data architectures, and building APIs that can actually handle the speed and scale that AI demands. The companies winning at this right now are the ones willing to invest heavily in infrastructure, not just in flashy AI features. The broader implication is clear: the next wave of AI competitive advantage won't go to whoever builds the best models. It'll go to whoever can actually deploy them at scale without their entire system choking. We're entering an era where infrastructure engineers are becoming just as critical as AI researchers, and companies that haven't started that modernization work are already falling behind. Thanks for staying updated with Neural Brief. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss tomorrow's biggest tech stories. See you next time.